Mataji Mairi.
Which Mataji? Somebody.
Illusion Pro's wife.
Everybody's a Mataji. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bikhatri Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bikhatri Janamala Bhat Girivala Pali Gopi Janamala Bhat Girivala Janaranjana Sodanandana Rajat Janaranjana Gunatera Manachali Amunatera Manachati Jayo Madhura Kunya Bikhatri Goyuran Madhura Kunya Bikhatri Janabala Bhat Girivala Pali Gopi Janabala Janabala Bhat Girivala Pali Yasudanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachati Yamuna Tera Vanachati Jaya Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahashila Prabhupada ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuranam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamuna Ki Jai Shrimati Galasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya. Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nivasesha Sinubadi Paschat Teja Tarni.
All glories to His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so today we are reading again from the 8th canto, 3rd chapter, text 2. Yesterday was text 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, Shri Gajendra Uvacha.
Shri Gajendra Uvacha.
You have this memorized still?
Om Namo Bhagavate.
Wow. He's too much.
What slok is that?
Number 2, chapter 3, 8th canto.
I can do.
8th canto.
832.
Yeah. Yeah. Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Tasmai
Tasmai
Yata
Yata
Etach
Etach
Chid
Chit
Atmakam
Atmakam
Prushayadi
Purushaya
Bijaya
Bijaya
Apareshaya Vidimahi.
Apareshaya Vidhimahi.
Okay. Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Yata Etachid Atmakam.
Yadaveta Chidatmakam.
Purushayari Vijaya.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Parashaya Vidimahi.
Pareshaya Vidhimahi.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Yata Etachid Atmakam.
Yadaveta Chidatmakam.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Parashaya Vidimahi.
Pareshaya Vidhimahi.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Yata Etachid Atmakam.
Yadaveta Chidatmakam.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Parashaya Vidimahi.
Pareshaya Vidhimahi.
Okay.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Yata Yata Chit Atmakam.
Yadaveta Chidatmakam.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Purushayadi Vijaya.
Pareshaya Vidhimahi.
Pareshaya Vidhimahi. Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai.
Yata Etat Chidatmakam.
Yata Etachid Atmakam.
Purushayadibijaya
Purushayadibijaya
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Shri Gajendra Vacha
Shri Gajendra Uvacha
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Yatayat Chit Atmakam
Atmakam
Purushayadibijaya
Purushayadibijaya
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Shri Gajendra Vacha
Shri Gajendra Vacha
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Yata Etat Chidatmakam
Atmakam
Purushayadibijaya
Purushayadibijaya
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Shri Gajendra Vacha
Shri Gajendra Uvacha
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Yata Etat Chidatmakam
Yatayatachidātmakam
Purushayadibijaya
Purushayadibijaya
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Shri Gajendra Vacha
Shri Gajendra Uvacha
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Yatayat Chit Atmakam
Yatayatachidātmakam
Purushayadibijaya
Purushayadibijaya
Pareshayadibhidhimahi
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Shri Gajendra Uvacha
Shri Gajendra Uvacha
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai
Yat Etat Chit Atmakam
Yatayatachidātmakam
Purushayadibijaya
Purushayadibijaya
Pareshayabhidhimahi
Pareshayabhidhimahi
All right. Shri Gajendra Vacha.
Shri Gajendra Uvacha
Gajendra, the king of elephants, said,
Gajendra, the king of elephants, said,
Om,
Om,
O my Lord.
O my Lord.
Namah. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you,
Bhagavate,
Bhagavate,
unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Tasmai,
Tasmai,
unto him.
unto him.
Yatat,
Yata,
from whom.
from whom.
Etat,
Etat,
this body and the material manifestation. Chit Atmakam
Chidatmakam,
is moving due to consciousness,
is moving due to consciousness.
the spirit soul.
Spirit soul.
Purushaya,
Purushaya,
unto the Supreme Person.
unto the Supreme Person.
Adipijaya,
Adivijaya,
who is the origin or root cause of everything. Para Ishaya,
Parishaya,
Hare Krishna. Who is supreme, transcendental, and worshipable. For such exalted persons as Brahma and Shiva.
for such exalted persons as Brahma and Shiva.
Abhidimahi,
Abhidhimahi,
let me meditate upon him.
meditate upon him.
So translation. The king of the elephants, Gajendra, said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Person, Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because of him, this material body acts due to the presence of spirit, and he is therefore the root cause of everyone. He is worshipable for such exalted persons as Brahma and Shiva, and he has entered the heart of every living being. Let me meditate upon him. So the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this verse, the words etat chit atmakam are very important. The material body certainly consists only of material elements. But when one awakens to Krishna consciousness, understanding the body is no longer material but spiritual. The material body is spiritual. When one awakens to it, then one understands this. The material body is meant for sense enjoyment, whereas the spiritual body engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Therefore, a devotee who engages in the service of the Supreme Lord and who constantly thinks of him should never be considered to have a material body. It is therefore enjoined, Gurushu Nara Mati. One should stop thinking of the spiritual master as an ordinary human being with a material body. Arche Vishnu Shilati. Everyone knows that the deity in the temple is made of stone. But to think that the deity is merely stone is an offense. Similarly, to think that the body of the spiritual master consists of material ingredients is offensive. Atheists think that devotees foolishly worship a stone statue as God and an ordinary man as the Guru. The fact is, however, that by the grace of Krishna's omnipotence, the so-called stone statue of the deity is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the body of the spiritual master is directly spiritual. A pure devotee who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service should be understood to be situated on the transcendental platform. Sagunan samatityayitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That's from the Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Let us therefore offer our obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy so-called material things also become spiritual when they are engaged in spiritual activity. Omkara Pranava is the symbolic sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Tat Sad Iti Nirdesho Brahmanas Tri Vidal Smita. The three words Om Tat Sat immediately invoke the Supreme Person. Therefore, Krishna says that he is the Omkara in all the Vedic mantras, Pranava Sarva Vedeshu. The Vedic mantras are pronounced beginning with Omkara to indicate immediately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, begins with the words Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. There is no difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, and Omkara Pranava. We should be careful to understand that Omkara does not indicate anything nirakara, or formless. Indeed, this verse immediately says, Om Namo Bhagavate. Bhagavan is a person. Thus, Omkara is the representation of the Supreme Person. Omkara is not meant to be impersonal as the Mayavadi philosophers consider it to be. This is distinctly expressed here by the word Purushaya. The supreme truth addressed by Omkara is Purusha, the Supreme Person. He is not impersonal. Unless he is a person, how can he control the great stalwart controllers of this universe? Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva are the supreme controllers of this universe, but Lord Vishnu is offered obeisances even by Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, this verse uses the word Parashaya, which indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by exalted demigods. Parashaya means Parameshvara. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are Ishvara's great controllers, but Lord Vishnu is Parameshvara, the supreme controller. Just a short commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that I should read. I offer respects to and meditate upon the Lord, because of whom this world of gross and subtle bodies made of Maya becomes conscious. I offer respects to the Lord with the human form, who is the final cause and thus the Supreme Lord. So again, the verse in Sanskrit. Shri Gajendra Vacha Om Namo Bhagavate Tasmai Yata Etach Chidatmakam Purushaya Vijaya Parashaya Vidhimahi. So Omagana Tividanda Shagananjana Shlakya Chakshru Meditam Yena Tasmai Shigarena Maha. So here in this purport, Prabhupada touches two topics. One topic is, of course, the topic of Omkara. As Krishna says, Pranava Sarva Vedeshu Shabda Ke Purusham Nishu. Another verse? That's good. So, that I am the syllable Om in the Vedic literatures. And the other topic, of course, is a very interesting topic that Prabhupada talks about quite a bit, and the Goswamis talk about quite a bit. And that can be summarized by the words Yukta Vairagya, Prapanchakataya Budya, Hari Sambandha Vashtuna, Prityadi, Vairagyam Katu, that in other words, we are meant to engage things in Krishna's service. You know that verse? No. Too bad. Picked a verse you didn't know. That, in other words, when we engage things in Krishna's service, and we are meant to engage things in Krishna's service, and if we don't engage things in Krishna's service that can be engaged in Krishna's service, that is called Falgu Vairagya. Basically means false renunciation. Prabhupada one time referred to a river in India that's called the Falgu River. The reason it's called the Falgu River, at least Prabhupada said this, is that it appears that there's no river there, but underneath the ground or the sand there's actually water flowing. So it appears that there's no river, but there actually is a river anyway. This is the Prabhupada's example. So false renunciation means basically to not utilize something that can be utilized in Krishna's service. And as Prabhupada comments in this particular purport, that when something is utilized, and Prabhupada specifically refers to the body of a devotee, it's interesting, and also the deity, when something is utilized in Krishna's service, it retains its original spiritual quality. That's interesting. Does that mean if I use my body in Krishna's service, it's my eternal spiritual body, it'll stay forever? Do you think so? No. So what does it mean by spiritual quality? And what is the difference? The question is, what's the difference between spiritual and material? Which is a very interesting question. So material is described in the Chaturshloka verse that we cited yesterday. Rite ritam napratyeta. You remember that? Napratyeta chapmani tadvadyad atmanomayam yata pasha yata tamaha. Material means to see anything or to engage anything outside of Krishna's service. Actually, in this verse in the Chaturshloka, Krishna says of one, anything seen outside, I'm just paraphrasing, of course, outside of me is understood to be my illusory energy, just like a reflection that appears in darkness, isn't it? So in other words, material means something that is engaged, something that is seen as separate from the Supreme Personality of God. That's the material vision. And it also means that anything that in this world that is engaged outside of the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is covered by the three modes of nature. So now we're really going to differentiate between what spiritual and material is. That in other words, if we are using our body to serve our senses, then our body is covered, our body is influenced, our consciousness is influenced by the three modes of nature by that association. And if we are using our body to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mamchiyo Vyavacharena, Bhakti Yogena Sevate, Sagunan Samati Chaitan, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, Sagunan Samati Chaitan, that the modes of nature are not covering the body anymore. And that means the body is basically situated in Shuddha Sattva, right? And therefore, it can be understood to be spiritual. However, at the same time, it is composed of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But earth, water, fire, air, and ether are not necessarily material. Even though Krishna describes what? Vina Prakriti Ashtada. That they're my separated energies, but they're not necessarily material. Because material means to be engaged in the sense gratification or in the service of someone who's in illusion, not thinking of Krishna, not aware of Krishna, not serving Krishna. That's what material means. So this is an interesting definition of spiritual and material. So we should not think that the pure devotee's body will last forever, because it is still composed of, let's use a different word instead of material, it's still composed of physical elements. And those physical elements can be spiritualized or can be spiritual and are ultimately spiritual when they're not covered by the modes of nature. In other words. And actually, it was interesting, another time Prabhupada said that actually we never left the spiritual world. Prabhupada was asked the question, how do we fall down? And, actually, Prabhupada answered that it's not a question of falling down. He said we went into illusion. We're actually in the spiritual world. Anyway, so then Prabhupada also gives the example of Krishna being an expert, just like an electrician, which we spoke about yesterday. Like an electrician can teach and can transform electricity from heating energy to cooling energy. Prabhupada also gave that particular example. So Krishna can transform matter to spirit. That's another way of looking at it. But in any case, something used in Krishna's service, even apart from the body, even apart from the deities, becomes spiritualized. For example, even this computer that I'm using in Krishna's service is spiritualized. Doesn't mean it's not going to break down, ultimately, but it's spiritualized. Now, on the other hand, if I start to use it after class to watch Bollywood movies, it's mundane, right? It depends upon how I use it. That's very interesting. Or let's say a temple. Let's say devotees set up a temple. Okay, like you have a temple here. And you have the chanting of the holy names. That place becomes a holy place. And let's say later on, devotees sell the temple or don't rent it anymore if it happens to be a rented place. Then it merges back into the Mahatattva. And you can experience the difference, the atmosphere. When you go into a temple where there's chanting of Hare Krishna, you can actually experience the spiritual atmosphere. Like Prabhupada said, the temples, okay, Hare Krishna. The Hare Krishna temples are actually Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Just like we're sitting here, hopefully here in Bhagavatam class. And this is Vaikuntha, because we're hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole house is becoming transformed. And then, when Bart and his family leave the house, it'll become a mundane place again. Because it's being used for Krishna. Does that make sense?
Yes, Lord.
And also, let's talk about the deities for a second. An interesting story when I was with Prabhupada one time. Like Prabhupada, all right, so we were sitting in Prabhupada's room one time, and there were a group of devotees who had just come from touring different temples in India. And they were relating to Prabhupada where they had been, what had happened. So they related that they went into a particular temple, and the devotees were not treated properly. So they explained that to Prabhupada. You know, they didn't host us, they didn't treat us, they were nasty to us. And then they described to Prabhupada, and then we went to see the deities. And Prabhupada said, there's no deity there. So I was thinking, oh my God. And they're saying, but Prabhupada, we saw the deity. And Prabhupada said, you heard what I said. There's no deity. What did that mean? And so then Prabhupada gave the example of Bengali saying, of using the Shalagram Shila to crack nuts with. In other words, Krishna left. Even though there was the form of the Lord there, Krishna left because they weren't serving him properly. And Lord Kapiladeva in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam says that anyone who worships and he doesn't pay respects to the Vaishnavas, you know that statement? He's like offering oblations to ashes. So in other words, even with the deity, Krishna can come and he can leave. That's interesting, isn't it? So in other words, the same substance that can be material, spiritual, can also become material, or vice versa, by how your consciousness. It's a very interesting phenomenon, isn't it? The transformation or transmutation of a matter to spirit, and then spirit to matter again. Very, very interesting. Now, in certain circumstances, you actually have Krishna transforming the physical body into one's eternal spiritual body. That happened. Well, that's very rare. Like in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, isn't it? Gets on the airplane. And in many cases, and actually even in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you have that point, that statement about Gopakumar. Some of you may know this story. Gopakumar went to the spiritual world, and his body became transformed into a body that, you know, his original spiritual body. But generally, even with a pure devotee, it's necessary for one to give up one's body. And so we should understand the physical form that we see the pure devotee in, such as Srila Prabhupada's physical form, is not its eternal form. Although it's spiritual, which is really interesting. Because generally we think, you know, spiritual means something that doesn't cease to exist, and something that never came into being, isn't it? So it's interesting, that differentiation between spirit and matter, which is quite different than what we mostly think about. That spiritual means to be used in Krishna's service, and it's called Yukta Vairagya, and material means something that's not used in Krishna's service. So spiritual paraphernalia. So that's the first point here that Prabhupada makes. Second point is, of course, is the information about Omkara. The Acharyas describe Omkara, that Omkara is Radha and Krishna, the living entity. Prabhupada said it's a different way of chanting Hare Krishna. It's not impersonal like most people, like, you know, the Mayavadis talk about. You know, the Mayavadis, they chant Omkara, but we chant Om a lot. Nama Om Vishnupadaya, isn't it? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And but generally, we don't make this one of our main mantras that we chant, the Hare Krishna movement. And the reason for that is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Although chanting Om is not something that's prohibited. Devotees can chant Om. And so, anyway, that's the correct understanding of Om. A-U-M, Radha and Krishna and the living entities. Anyway, so anyone have any questions? We'll keep it short. Questions or comments about anything I said? Yeah.
Yes, Maharaj, as you mentioned about material world
Yeah.
to be like spiritual.
Yeah, but
So why we hankering to go back home, back to God at that?
actually,
when Krishna leaving the body, I mean, he go back home to his dham.
Krishna Goloka Ili Vashati Akilatma Bhuta. Krishna never leaves his down. Although he has an apparent pastime where he's going back to the spiritual world, but Krishna never leaves Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna is never absent from Goloka Vrindavan. He's never absent from the spiritual world. Although, but for pastime's sake, it may appear like that. And as far as a devotee wanting to go back to Godhead, we talked about this before. What is a devotee's aspiration, the topmost devotee's aspiration? Narayana Paraksarve Nakutaschina Bibhyati. You know that verse? Swarga Bhavarga Narakeshu Apitul Yarta Darshana. A devotee, pure devotee, sees everywhere as the same. He sees heaven, he sees hell, he sees liberation the same. Why? Because wherever he goes, he's serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, Manma Janmani Janmani Shire Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoitaki Twaye. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur prays, Gita Janma Hoy Atatudya Das. Isn't it? Brahma Jadme, Bhakti Mukha Brahma Jadme Nahiyash. Yeah, I don't want to become even Lord Brahma if I'm not your devotee, Bhakti Mukha, turning my face away from you. So a devotee is willing to go anywhere. A pure devotee is not thinking of going back to Godhead. A pure devotee is thinking of going or doing whatever Krishna wants. A pure devotee doesn't aspire for any of the types of even Vaishnava liberation. Those types are Sarupya, having the same form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, similar. Of course, nobody has exactly the same form. Salokya, living on the planet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shashti, having the opulences of the Lord. And Samipya, associating with the Supreme, directly associated with the Lord. The pure devotee is simply aspiring to please the Lord, even if it means going to hell. Because whether a devotee goes to heaven or hell, he does the same thing. He's serving Krishna. So, Narayana Paraksave Nakatashina Vidyata. He sees them all as the same. Swarga Pavarga Narakeshu Api Tulyarta Darshana. That means he sees them all as the same. And so, if you aspire to go back to Godhead, basically this is a catch-22, you're not going back to Godhead. So why did Prabhupada say we should want to go back to Godhead? That's interesting. Because Prabhupada wanted us to have some impetus for doing devotional service. Because in the beginning of devotional service, we talked about this yesterday, one has to have some motivation that is not exactly pure. Like Krishna says in Gita, Chaturvidaha Bhashantibam. People come to me because they're looking for what? Wealth. I mean, how many people go to the temple looking for wealth or blessings or because they're in distress.
There are a lot.
A lot.
Mm.
A lot. Just like, just like people go to temples in India. I'm thinking of Tirupati, and sometimes they make a deal with the deity. They say, if this business deal, please make my business deal successful. And if this business deal is successful, I'll give you 50%. Like that. And there's an interesting story in Tirupati. One time a man came to get blessings from the deity and wanted to give a little gold to the deity. There's a piece of gold. So he thought, let my son get the blessings. You heard that story before, right? And he had his son hold the gold bar, whatever it was, over the hundi. And the son, by accident, was slipped out of the guy's hands and fell into the hundi. And the man said, can I have my son back? And he said, no, you've given him to Balaji. So anyway, so people go to see the deities for ulterior purposes. They want wealth, they're in distress, they're inquisitive, or they want knowledge. And all of us, until we become pure devotees, we have one or several of these different motivations. So therefore, Prabhupada wanted us to function on a level that was consistent with our level of consciousness. So you have to really give people like the carrot, so to speak. Keep them in Krishna consciousness. Just another example. That Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur talked about how we keep people and bring people to Krishna consciousness. And he gave that example of a man who had a servant and he couldn't keep his servant. Some of you may have heard the story. He really mistreated the servant for some reason. And the servants kept running away. And he went to his friend, what should you do? What should I do? I want to keep my servants. And the man, his friend, said to him, you should feed him, he used this example, balam rice. I don't even know what balam rice is, like basmati or something. You should feed your servant balam rice with ghee on it. And your servant, for at least 2 weeks, your servant will never leave you. So he did that, and the servant ran away for like a few hours, and he came back. And he never left the man. Now what does that mean exactly? That means that we all have some other motivation. And in order to preach Krishna consciousness, we have to make Krishna, we have to sweeten. The medicine is sweet. Harinam is sweet. There's no doubt about it. But we may have to put some sugar coating on it too. Like so many people, Prabhupada was asked one time, the devotees, did you join the movement because of prasadam? And just everybody raised their hand and said yes. And Prabhupada spent so much time cooking for the devotees in the early days, right? And Prabhupada used ghee in every preparation. Not like nowadays, of course, the devotees cook in motor oil or what, 10W30. Isn't it? Vegetarian oil. But anyway, but Prabhupada, he actually cooked everything in ghee and spent so much time cooking prasadam for everybody. Prabhupada said, what? It's a kitchen religion. It's interesting. It's Prabhupada's expression. And also Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was willing to make so many adjustments in order to preach Krishna, bring people to Krishna consciousness. It's interesting. He said we should be willing to shed gallons of blood to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So the point is that we all have these other motivations. And when a devotee came to Prabhupada one time and said, I really want, I don't even want to go back to God, I just want to serve life after life. Prabhupada said, no, you should want to go back to God. And the reason is Prabhupada was addressing that particular devotee's level of spiritual realization. So we have to, when we're presenting Krishna consciousness to people, we should present it in such a way as it's appropriate to their level of spiritual realization and appropriate to their motivation, to motivating them in Krishna consciousness.
Because a lot of devotees, Nephi devotees just say, oh, Prabhupada said this, there's a quotation there. But
You can take so many quotes, but you have to understand the context of those particular quotes.
time, place, and circumstance.
Time, place, and circumstance, and the intention of Prabhupada. Prabhupada says different things at different times, and Prabhupada ultimately, even though we have all of Prabhupada's letters, Prabhupada actually said the letters should not be distributed to anyone, because these are all time, place, and circumstance instructions to different devotees. Prabhupada was expert according to presenting Krishna consciousness according to the person, the circumstance, and the time, like that. So anyway, we should want to go back to Godhead. We should. But we should understand the position of the pure devotee. The pure devotee is willing to come back and again and again and again out of compassion and to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should understand how exalted the pure devotee is, and we should be honest about our own motivation, or motivations. We have many motivations. So akama, sarvakama, mokshakama, dharadi. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham. Dhram, you know the verse? Yeah, he knows all the verses. Whether one is free, full of material desires, akama. Whether one is free of material desires, full of material desires, or even desiring liberation, one should worship Krishna tivrena bhakti. Prabhupada translates the word tivra as like forceful, I guess enthusiastic, one-pointed. So one should understand, be honest about one's motivation, and in this way, be enthusiastic in devotional service. That's the point. Yukta vairagya, using things in Krishna's service. And don't try to emulate someone who is more advanced. Actually, it's described, I was just reading this, I believe it's in the Bhagavatam, that if one of the Acharya's commentaries, if one tries to act beyond one's adhikar, it creates a disturbance in society. So it's very important to understand, to be honest with oneself as far as one's own level of spiritual advancement. So, other questions? Yeah.
Swanaja, you mentioned that sometimes we have to present Krishna consciousness and even inspire some material motivation by showing some carrot, right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes it happens that you offer a carrot and the person uses the carrot to only for material purpose instead of using in the service.
Give me an example.
Like, in our, say, congregation, somebody may be wanting to participate in congregation activities only if I have some title or power position. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you give the person power position, you start showing the power position.
Well, I don't agree with that sort of carrot. Because that, as Prabhupada said, if you go to Lanka, you become Ravan. You ever heard that statement before?
No.
Prabhupada said, if you go to Lanka, you'll become Ravan. Or to put it in modern nomenclature, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. You gonna look that up?
Writing it down.
Prabhupada said, if you go to Lanka, you'll become Ravan. So in other words, if you're posted or take a position that's higher than your adhikar, then that person, it will go to their head and it'll be contaminating for the person. So that's not the sort of carrot you give people. The carrot we give people is nice prasadam generally. Isn't it? Like that's the way Prabhupada did it. Prabhupada did not give people position to encourage them. Prabhupada gave them prasadam, appreciation, different things like that. But I don't find that Prabhupada posted someone like his GBC just because they bloop otherwise. And we have a history in our movement when people did take position that they weren't qualified for, it became disastrous for the society.
Oh yeah.
And that wasn't Prabhupada's doing. That was, mistakes made by the GBC or mistakes made by other management people. So therefore, I do not agree that a carrot a position should be utilized as a carrot. Other things. You give someone a gift, you give someone prasadam, you give someone appreciation. Okay, you distributed more books than everybody else. Haribol, Gauranga. You give someone a certificate for being the best book distributor. Like that. I mean, that's sort of carrot stuff.
Thank you.
And another thing, you appreciate people who are doing the right thing. That's carrot. It's not manipulative. One has to differentiate. It's not manipulative. It's helping someone become enthusiastic about Krishna consciousness. We're not trying to manipulate people. There's a difference between giving people a carrot and manipulating people. But that's part of Krishna consciousness. Why do we have so much nice prasadam? Because, who would join the movement otherwise? If you just had the philosophy, you get a few people like him. You come to the temple, it's just like philosophy, and okay, finish with class, goodbye. No. On Sunday, most of the people come at the end of the lecture because that's when the feast is. Isn't it? We have to be practical about it. And, and how do we package Krishna? How do we package kirtans, too? Kirtans have to be packaged in such a way that people are attracted to them. Although Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his temples would sometimes have the person with the worst voice lead the kirtan. Did you know that? Why did he have that? Because he didn't want the devotees just enjoying some material quality. He wanted devotees to enter into the mood of the holy name. But when he presented things publicly, he did things differently.
So two things.
Yeah. He was so liberal in presenting things publicly.
So Maharaj, Sunday program is a public event or not?
Sunday's program,
Sunday
public.
feast program is a public event.
Should be. Why not?
And the kirtan has to be sophisticated, that means.
Sophisticated?
With all-
No, melodic, nice.
Yeah. Not bad, wide voice people not allowed.
Sunday feast should be presentable, either class or
Everything should
kirtan.
be done properly. The Sunday feast people should prepare before giving it. The kirtan should be led only by people who have good voices.
And then Maharaj, so even then that applies with presentation also, right? Giving classes.
Yeah, giving classes too.
But like devotees argue, I want to give class on Sunday, but they are not at that standard.
So no, the Sunday's for the public.
So even devotees are arguing, I want to give class, but they are not at that standard to give class. So what do you do with them?
No,
How
we
do
have
you
to
do-
think about the public.
Okay.
We have to think who is qualified to give class. Anyway, interesting discussion. Does anyone else have any questions?
Go on.
No?
Thank you, Maharaj. Sorry, I was late.
No, that's all right. It's always good to see you. question.
Maharaj, you mentioned, so lots of Prabhu's prodding me, so I have always have questions.
Yeah.
Maharaj, you said, it was very interesting when you said that there has to be a motivation in the beginning.
Yeah.
It can't be just acting a pure devotee. And where is that cutoff line, Maharaj? Because all of us, I'm trying to think, all the general population have, of course, a sense of pride, and everyone wants to serve with their ability. But there is a time Prabhupada says that you must surrender to the Lord too. So when do one?
That's the aspiration. But one has to be honest enough to recognize one's situation. If we're dishonest with ourselves and don't recognize the desires that we still have, how will we be able to deal with them? First, you have to recognize the anarthas before you can deal with them.
Sometimes, Maharaj, the pride itself cowers one, and it's very difficult without someone seeing or watching it.
Yeah, that's why we need the association devotees. So the association devotees, an advanced devotee can explain to us in a kind way, not smash us and say, you're a lusty dog. Or you're like a Krishna conscious version. Anyway, I won't mention. Anyway, a particular politician that I won't mention right now. That, it has to be kind and facilitate. The leaders in the movement or advanced devotees should be facilitators rather than bosses. Because when you actually attack someone's anarthas, they go away. You're envious. You're an envious snake. How's someone going to react to that? They're going to go away. Or they become discouraged in Krishna consciousness. I remember, one time I was a brahmachari years ago, and the sannyasi I was traveling with, so heavy, he said, basically everybody else is not the body, you are the body. He was so heavy, chastising all the time, that myself, and I was traveling also with Bhakta Tirtha Maharaj, who was my friend, we would embrace each other and cry because we were being dealt with in such a heavy fashion.
Man, what is the statement?
What?
What statement you say?
What
statement the sannyasi would say?
It was saying statements like, just to insult me, you are the body, everybody else is not the body. In other words, you're so mundane. You are your material body. So, it was quite discouraging and also traumatic. So we don't want to traumatize people in the name of Krishna consciousness, but there's ways to present it.
I think we less facilitate than we point out the fault.
Yeah, we should facilitate
Yeah.
and help people come to the conclusion that they have a particular desire, anartha. People will come to the conclusion by the chanting of the holy name. But it takes time. People have to have their realizations. You can't push a realization on someone. There has to be... Anyway, I just encourage people to be honest and open and not hide their anarthas either, just like... Otherwise you hide something, even from yourself, eventually it grows more and more. And it may overcome your bhakti lata bija, it may overcome your devotion. So it's extremely important to be honest with oneself and help people understand, where they're at in devotional service. And be open enough to be kind and loving with everybody in spite of someone having so many anarthas. It's really important. Otherwise, we're in denial about, who we are, or who we are right now. Isn't it? It's what's it called? Cognitive dissonance. Yeah.
Maharaj, and on the topic of Sunday Love Feast, what happens, I'm just giving my observation, is in ISKCONs, that's the only event. And Prabhupada envisions Sunday Love Feast is one of the events.
Yeah, one of the events,
where
yeah.
that is just meant for the public consumption.
Yeah.
And you should have lots of Bhagavatam classes and regular association, and you
Right,
spend.
right.
But what happens now is being weekend warriors. That is the only event, and for devotees to express themselves, devotees to be part of.
Right.
So that's when everyone wants to speak there. So actually, the ISKCON has deprived the devotees' ability to speak. So everyone wants to line up for the Sunday Love Feast and
To speak at the Love Feast.
speak at the Love Feast and be part of it. Association, Bhagavatam class, everything happens in this 3-hour window. That's why
Right.
everyone wants to have that opportunity, and that is the challenge of managing. Maybe we can talk tomorrow about.
Yeah, the challenge of management.
Because everyone wants to sing, because that's the only window they have to express themselves, to preach, and they say, okay, I want to sing and I want to speak. And when we constrain that, okay, this is only meant for public,
It's
then
public, yeah.
everyone is left out.
And then after singing and preaching, everyone wants to be the first to eat too. So the whole consciousness should be, this program is for the public. The public gets to eat first. We serve them. I've seen in many temples, the devotees line up first for prasadam.
Guess
And sometimes the guests become the servants. I was in Fiji one time, many times in Fiji, and I noticed this, and I said to the devotees, you all sit down, you're not getting your plates. And then I began to serve the guests, and I said, you all should do this. And when the guests are finished, you eat, if there's anything left over. You're eating prasadam all week long. You have a home, you have a wife who can cook any damn thing you want. So why are you pushing all these new people away? You should serve. And that's what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada, he served all these new people in New York. And some people were eating like 20 rotis in one sitting. And Prabhupada cleaned up after them. Amazing, isn't it? That's compassion. So that's actually preaching, compassion. Not that I just have to show off my ability to present Krishna consciousness. If you really want to preach during the week, just go get a Zoom account and preach online. There's plenty of people.
Facebook, Zoom,
Yeah, there's plenty.
YouTube, there's so many
Yeah,
places. Instagram.
social networking.
Maharaj, actually what happens in our in Sunday program,
Yeah,
people who always they are regulars. They are not like very few outsiders come.
Yeah.
But the main public events we have is like Janmashtami, where a lot of new people
Oh,
come,
yeah.
So the Sunday feast is a very small time interval. And so what happens is the desire to serve becomes an anartha actually. People have such a strong desire to serve, it becomes an anartha actually. That's, they will...
Desire to serve is an anartha?
Because there's such a strong desire, they want to give a class, So it becomes an anartha because he has a strong desire to give a class.
No, but serving the Vaishnavas.
That's true, but...
Lord Chaitanya came to teach Jivadoya, Vaishnava Seva, Nama Ruchi.
Yeah, that's
So you get an opportunity to serve the other Vaishnavas.
But that's the thing, it's a small event. It's not what you would call a public event.
Well, it
Even
should
when other
be. It
temples
should be
come.
public.
Pardon?
It should be public.
Even though the regulars are coming, the same people come every time.
No,
Make a schedule.
Anyway, the point is, Sunday feast should be a public time to bring people to Krishna consciousness. That's the way Prabhupada arranged it.
Maharaj, maybe you can, on a Sunday class, you can suggest that we be attached to the service attitude instead of the service. So, if everyone is...
Well, we're attached to serving, but not a particular service.
Yeah.
Actually, the more you remove, what is that? Dasa, dasa, dasanudasa. The more you become a servant of 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 a servant, the more exalted it is.
Hmm.
That's the way people should understand. Gopi Varta Pada Kamala Dasa Dasa Dasa. And that's where a servant of a servant of a servant of the Lord maintains the devotees. You know, it's a servant. And that was Prabhupada's attitude when he was preaching in New York. You know, he's serving like that. Not that we have to be prominent.
Like we have Saturday Bhagavatam class.
That's nice.
And it's early, so devotees will not come. Only few will come.
This is Saturday. They're all here.
But
No, that's because of you, Maharaj. Otherwise, there are three people or four people.
But when it's like a midday, then everybody wants to jump in. So it's lazy to wake up or something.
Anyway, I don't want to criticize Vaishnavas. But the point is, everyone should want to serve. If we want to serve and we're compassionate, people will come. That's the point. Yeah, if we want to make ourselves prominent by giving class and showing off our erudition, it's not going to attract anyone. The motivation has to be to serve and bring people compassion. Like I said, what impressed me about Prabhupada when I first met him was his compassion. What depressed me about some of the devotees was their heaviness in the beginning. And some of you may have not heard the story. It took me 2 more years to join the Krishna conscious movement because the devotees who first preached to me, they preached at me, told me I was going to hell unless I joined the Hare Krishna movement. You know, because their motivation was, you know, basically to show off their erudition or whatever it was, or to control things. And Prabhupada's motivation was simply causeless compassion. So, any other questions or comments? Questions? No questions? Comments? Yeah.
Thank you for class, Maharaj. One thing I did want to, so just to clarify in my own mind, so if we're attached to the service, we would basically be willing to do any service, not just one particular.
Right.
You know, I want to do service, but I only want to do a kirtan.
That's right.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's something I've been meditating on a lot lately. So
good.
You kind of hammered it home.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. And it's a fact. It's the service mood, you know.
Yeah.
I remember some of the most ecstatic service I did when I first joined the Hare Krishna movement. The first thing they did is they sent me to the bathroom to clean the toilets. And it was ecstatic.
Yeah.
In my life, I had never cleaned a toilet before because that's what mothers were made for. To clean toilets and clean clothes, right? That's what Krishna designed mothers for. So, so they said, all right, your duty is to clean the toilets. And so I went in and I said, oh my God, I've never done this before. And so I started doing it. I felt great ecstasy, great happiness, because I was serving the Vaishnavas and I was taking a humble position. Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasishna Manina Manadena Kirtanyasadaharu, and that's to offer all respects to others. And so I became very happy. And then they sent me into the kitchen to clean the pots. And Prabhupada said that even if the pot has one spot, black spot on the bottom, it's still dirty. Now, of course, you go into any temple and the pots have so many like soot and things on the bottom. But I remember that, and they said if you clean the pot, you're cleaning your heart. You probably heard that one before. So I cleaned it with that mood and was so ecstatic. And when I went, I talked about Fiji, how I was serving prasadam, I was so happy. You're giving people prasadam, and I had to tell the devotees, smile when you give prasadam. They were just going, oh my God, this sannyasi is actually forcing us to serve when I'm hungry. You should be thinking, thank you for letting me give you prasadam, with that mood. The people will become so joyful, you will become joyful, if you have that service attitude. And that will attract so many people to Krishna consciousness, that service attitude.
Maharaj, I remember that
Hmm.
in early days of Krishna in Mumbai temple, Chopati
Yeah.
temple.
Yeah.
That's how during the Radha Swami Maharaj trained all the brahmacharis.
Mm.
You cook the feast, and during the festival or even Sunday feast, you all serve till the time everyone is taken.
Yeah.
Then you sit down, and it was so joyful.
Yeah.
There used to be always ample of prasad for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
even though we will give wholeheartedly everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be always sumptuous prasad for everyone, and it created this explosion in congregation.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
whole mood of
The mood
giving,
of
created
love,
explosion.
loving exchange. Dadati pratigranati guya makyati prichati, right?
Yeah.
Bhunte bhosyate chaiva. You're giving prasadam, accepting prasadam. Loving exchange. I mean, that's what attracts people to Krishna consciousness. The loving exchange is the community between, the members of the movement. And so that's the secret to spreading Krishna consciousness.
That's why yesterday Raksha Mataji said the community is so loving and
Yeah,
caring
yeah,
that-
yeah. Raksha said that. Yeah,
That's what made her to keep coming. Is welcoming.
yeah. Even though she was initiated outside of ISKCON,
Yeah.
which is interesting. That's another issue. But still, she doesn't really. She wants to join ISKCON more than her guru's sangha because of the loving mood and community. Because people have these needs. We have to recognize that people have basic needs. There's social needs, friendship needs. There's even recreational needs. So if you really want to develop a community, you not only have to have a Sunday feast, you have to have encouragement of devotees to make friendship with each other and serve each other. You have to have even recreational events. Have all the devotees go somewhere, some Saturday or something like that, doing some recreational thing, to the park, to the beach, or something like that, whatever you have here, or the river, or the desert. Anyway, so
That's really.
What's that?
That's very helpful, Maharaj. Thank you.
yeah, I mean that's what we do. We have different retreats, not only where everyone just chants Hare Krishna. We have retreats where the devotees just go to a picnic, have a picnic together.
Nirajal Prabhu is our official cook whenever we go for picnic.
That's nice. It's community, community of devotees.
Yeah.
Fiji, we go always, Maharaj.
Yeah.
We go picnic.
Picnics, go to the beach, go swimming. Not men and women together. We're different areas. I mean, at least we're not that modern.
Yeah, probably the question.
Yeah, you had a question, Prabhu.
Oh, Maharaj, so you told that when our consciousness change, the difference between matter and spirit.
Spirit is difference in consciousness, yeah.
So, Maharaj, it is also like that. It depends on Krishna and mercy also. Then.
Yes. Yeah, consciousness can only change by Krishna's mercy. Without Krishna's mercy, but Krishna's mercy is coming from the devotees, descending from the devotees. And then the consciousness changes, and that changes everything to spiritual. Even your computer becomes spiritual, even, whatever. Even these flowers are spiritual because they're used for Krishna's service. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it means that like consciousness and Krishna and mercy are like.
Yeah, actually, that's the verse that I described from the Chaturshloki verses, the four main verses of the Bhagavatam, the nutshell verses of the Bhagavatam. That if you see anything without relationship to Krishna, that's material. And if you see something with relationship to Krishna, then that's spiritual. That's the difference. Or to use something, not only see something, that's from our perspective, but if you use something for Krishna properly according to Krishna's directions, that becomes spiritualized. At the same time, it's not eternal. This is not an eternal device. That's not an eternal device. But it's spiritual because I'm using it for Krishna. And ultimately, everything's meant to be used for Krishna. And if we use it for ourselves, that's, of course, mundane. And it's a misuse. Anyway, Krishna gives every... what is that? Krishna says, I am the ability in man, I'm the strength of the strong. So whatever we have comes from Krishna, and it's being lent to us by Krishna, and it's meant to be used for Krishna. And if we don't use it for Krishna, we're thieves.
Is there a limit on how much, like when we use phone or computer, we use for listening lectures and reading Gita, but then sometimes we have to watch news or whatever, do some mundane work like bank or something like that.
Well, if the purpose is to please Krishna, you go to the bank, Krishna's money. That's not mundane.
Yeah. But watching news is bad.
If you're watching the news so you're going to be relatively informed so people don't think you're a dummy, when you speak to them about, someone asks you, who's the President of the United States? I don't know. I don't watch the news. There's many things that we use in Krishna's service, but one has to be expert enough to know how to utilize those things. I mean, just like yesterday, I was talking to Ananta about a movie I saw, which I'm sure some of you saw it. Yeah, it's not a Bollywood movie, don't worry. There's a movie called Matrix. I'm sure just about every devotee has seen the movie. And I use the examples from Matrix, the story of Matrix, to prove certain points that, basically we're not the body, and we're living in a world, but actually we're not part of this world, we're part of another world, we're an illusion. Anyway, there's so many parallels you can draw between this movie and, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So in that case, watching that movie wasn't Maya, I hope. Although almost every devotee I know has seen the movie. You've seen it, right? No.
I haven't seen
Oh my
that.
God.
Heard about it a lot, but I...
Yeah. So, I mean, there's certain things you could see and utilize from a Krishna conscious perspective if you're advanced enough to do that. I'm not advising that everybody goes see the movies. But it's not bad to see the news, to watch the news.
Even the devotional, you go to Facebook and you go to devotional things, like some devotee site, then you get drawn into other things, like...
So don't do it. So learn to cut it off at that point.
Cut it off.
Some devotee was giving example that these internet or TV channels are like Ravana, he comes with one head to Sita.
Yeah.
But when she crosses the line, he shows the 10 heads.
Well, there's a danger.
Yeah.
There's a danger in Yukta Vairagya, engaging things in Krishna's service. One has to understand one's adhikar. Again, the adhikar, one's position, one's right to engage certain things in Krishna's service. Like if you try to engage too much or you take a position you don't have the adhikar for, then that'll be a disaster for you and for other people. That's why we have the Society of Devotees, to help us understand our adhikar, what we are qualified for. Okay. So prasadam time. That's what you all came for, right? Thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila